Hi guys, Lynn Abrams from Straight Razor Place and Straight Razor Designs. Today we're going to do a little honing, and I've been asked to do a bevel setter using the Shapton Glass stones, and so that's what we're going to do. I've got a almost mint condition old Simon razor here, and we're going to set the bevel on a 1000 Shapton Glass stone. And I like the ceramic nature of the glass stones. They're nice and hard. They're one of those stones you just spritz water over the top and go. You don't have to let them soak. They're a little harder, but they have great feedback. So we'll go ahead and get started on that in a second. I'm using the Shapton glass holder. This is a monster. It's heavy. I like it because it sets up from the table a little bit, and so the stone obviously fits right in. I could use a Steel-X holder in order to put it in. There's not a whole lot of play with the edge of the stone on this Steel-X, so it actually sets up a little bit better on the holder that's actually made for it. But this will work, and obviously it's a cheaper alternative than going with the Shapton holder. So there we are. All right. As everybody knows, the method I use for setting bevels involves some pressure and some circles. And so the one thing that I always stress when we talk about bevel setting is that it's just critical to have the bevel set properly. The razor, the rest of the honing process, particularly with the circles, but even if you're doing the old pyramid style honing, really nothing is going to fall into place until you have the bevel set properly. And so we'll go ahead and go from there. Now, the first thing that I do what's called a thumb pad test, and that's how I check and see how the bevels are set. Some guys will actually shave hair, and that will be their test. But for me, I just take the thumb pad and I rest it on the blade. Okay, I don't put any pressure on it whatsoever. Obviously, I don't want to cut. I don't want to make a movement up and down the blade because I don't want to get cut. So what I really want to look for is this edge biting into my thumb pad when I make a lateral motion, when I come across the blade with virtually no pressure. And so if my thumb just wants to slide off of the blade, then I know I have pretty much almost no bevel set. When it really bites in and it just wants to follow you, and you have a feeling that if you press down at all, you're going to get cut, that's a proper bevel set. But it's a very distinct feeling. It's a definite biting in. You could almost feel the graininess of it. And when you go to do a lateral movement, it's not your thumb pad actually is not going to want to let go of that blade. That's a good bevel. And so it may take you a couple of tries to get there. It may take you just a few additional X strokes to get there. But the method that we use with the circles seems to work and is extremely repeatable. And even that may take a couple tries. So here we go. I'm going to spray down the stone. And that's really all that it takes, is just a little bit of water on the surface. This stone holds water well. And so if any of you guys have seen any of my other videos, I do 40 circles because 2 sets of 20 is very easy for me to count, going counterclockwise, and then I'll reverse it and I'll do 40 strokes, small circles, going clockwise motion, and then I'll follow it up by X strokes. In the old days I used to do 10 or 15 X strokes. These days I probably do 30 or in excess of 30 because it minimizes the amount of circles that I have to do and actually really speeds up the process. So we're going to go ahead and get started on here, and so I'm going to do the 40 circles counterclockwise. Now I've got this heel of the blade angled or canted towards me. The most important thing here is to make sure that the spine and the edge of the blade remain flat on the stone. I put a little bit of pressure here, probably 5 to 10 pounds, somewhere in that vicinity, and I'm able to do that by this grip where I'm actually pinching the tang of this razor, and I keep my elbow parallel to the stone, and that allows me to keep the blade very flat on the razor. Now the reason I have the heel forward is this razor has a shoulder on it, and I don't like to hone into that shoulder or into the heel of this blade actually. So by keeping this razor canted just a little bit, I keep the shoulder off of that stone while I do my honing process. So 40 circles counterclockwise. So that's probably around 40. So for those of you guys who are counting, hopefully it's close. But typically I use 40. It's just a guideline. And as you can tell by the water dissipation, you can, if you watch the water off the edge of this razor, so long as that line stays flat all the way across, you can really tell that you're doing what you want to do and that your pressure's even. If you start to see gaps, that means you're either lifting up somewhere in your circle process, and you might have to repeat that. But we'll go ahead now and we'll do 40 circles. And again, I have the razor canted, so I'm not laying on that heel forward. And then we'll do these circles in a clockwise motion. See the water displacement? Really nice straight line. And the other thing you can tell is, look at all the metal that I'm taking off. So if you ever wonder if this 1,000 stone for a bevel set is, on the Shapton Glass anyway, is taking off metal, you can see across this stone that there's a lot of metal particle in here. So now we're going to follow it up with a series of X strokes. They don't have to be massive X strokes. Mostly X strokes will work. I'm the same way. People always ask me if I lap these stones. Basically, I clean this set of stones. I don't really grit them and lap them. They're a very, very hard set of stones, and mostly flat is mostly good for me. And from a results standpoint, I really don't have any problem. Now, you can hear the hardness on here, but if you follow my line displacement as well, you can see how flat that razor is staying on this stone. These Simons are really nice razors. I'm looking forward to shaving with this one. The vintage Simons, the really old ones, are awesome. I've always been told by a lot of the old barbers that those were razors that in their preferred use category. All right, there we go. So we're going to wipe off and we're going to test. One of the things that I do as well is I like to visually inspect this edge to make sure that that bevel I put in place is pretty consistent all the way across from the toe to the heel. Now in some cases where you've got a lot of previous wear and you've that uneven wear that you'll see in the spine is usually going to be reflected down into the bevel and into the edge. It's not so much into the edge but into the bevel. So you might see a little waviness, and what I'm really looking for is a nice crisp flatness right at the edge all the time versus trying to make it perfectly straight all the way across. If that was the case, I'd have to take off a ton of metal with some of the old Warren razors. So let's feel this one and see where we're at. And I'm going to check it all the way up and down the blade. This razor was in pretty good condition, so I'm not going to have to repeat a whole lot of this. It's pretty close right now. I think for this one, I'll probably just do another 10 or 20 X strokes versus doing another set of circles. Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. It's just grabbing into that thumb pad. It just does not want to let go. I feel like if I put any more pressure here, that it actually would cut through the skin. There's almost a little bit of a graininess. If I just rock the finger a little bit, I can feel that kind of grainy stiction. But when it says sharp, that's really perfect from a bevel setting standpoint. So now I'm ready to move on. And that pretty much does it. That bevel setting process, it's a good one. I stay on pressure, that little bit heavier pressure on the bevel setting, and I don't go to light pressure on this. I know some guys do light pressure, but it could take you who knows how many hundreds of strokes to get to the end result on that. And I find just this little bit of pressure does not affect either the wear really on the spine, as you can tell even if you looked at this razor. So we're pretty much good to go. 40 circles counterclockwise, 40 circles clockwise, 30, 35 X strokes, and then test, and it's repeatable. I would say that if you have a razor in poor enough condition to where you have to do that, you think more than 3 or 4 times, I would go ahead and use electric tape on the spine, because at that point you don't want to really take off that much metal, as you're probably doing more of a repair into that edge along with setting the bevel. So that's bevel setting, Shapton 1000 stone. You guys have fun. Any questions, always feel free to email me, call me, and I'll see you next time. Happy honing, guys.